Hey everybody, Brian Cutlinger with another quick, easy video for people. This is the power of gland lore. And the last video we talked about the preorbital gland and the importance of that. Today we're going to talk about a gland that's really starting to pick up with deer right now as they're getting ready to start peeling their velvet, and that would be the forehead gland. And the forehead gland essentially lies right in here in this area, and this whole patch of hair for the deer is going to pick up. Okay, and it's going to be, it's going to hold all of the scent. And right now, as deer are in velvet and as they're getting closer to start rubbing that forehead gland lore is starting to produce more and more and more gland, secretion. Older bucks are known to produce more gland secretion than younger bucks. That's why a lot of the times you'll see this matted, mess of hair in between here, and you'll see it gets a lot darker. So we're going to talk about the importance of the forehead gland lore moving forward now that deer are getting ready to shed their velvet, and talk about the makeup of a mock scrape and why you would want to use forehead gland lore with that. So we're going to head outside here in a minute, use a mock scrape, and talk a little bit about that. Alright, so we're out here actually right behind my house where I have this mock scrape that I built, and it gets hit all the time. We can see from the house deer coming in and hitting it. So let's talk about the importance of the forehead gland now that we're into late August, beginning of September. Once deer begin to go into the process of shedding their velvet, that forehead gland is picking up and it's pumping out, and it's starting to create a lot of forehead gland secretions. And so what I found over the last decade or so of using mock scrapes, hanging vines, ropes and stuff is deer want a one-stop shop. They want a one-stop shop where they can deposit preorbital, salivary, forehead, interdigital, and then even urinate and get the tarsals and stuff involved later on down the road. So I see a lot of things where people just hang rope and stuff like that, and the deer come in and deposit some preorbital, this, that, and everything else. Deer will eventually, begin to go other places where they can deposit all three. So within this scrape that I have set up right here, this is a grapevine that I have just with chicken wire on the tree. And I left these oak branches here so that deer can come in, deposit, their scent on the vine as the licking branch, and also get their head up in between, and leave the scent on the leaves. And we'll explain here in a second why that's so important and why I like to use forehead gland lore as we really get closer into the season, September, once they shed their velvet and everything else. So again, a good licking branch where you can put preorbital, and a good cover of leaves, whether they're real or fake, where they can get their whole face up in there, and even with their forehead gland to deposit that. And again, we'll talk about why that's so important. All right, so the basic thing of a scrape that you're looking for: fresh dirt underneath, licking branch, overhanging leaves, so they can one-stop shop. They'll deposit their interdigital gland, forehead, we'll go here, preorbital, salivary gland, and you want this to happen. And when you're making a mock scrape, you want to use all three, and this is the most important reason why. A lot of the time through the year, does are the ones coming in and hitting the licking branch. They'll rub their heads in the leaves and they'll deposit their scent. Those are telltale signs that they're telling a buck, hey, I'm this doe, I'm still in the area. A lot of does will come in and check mock scrapes to add three things up: interdigital of the buck, preorbital of the buck, forehead of the buck. Those three things will allow a doe to know which bucks are in the area. So when it comes to pre-rut, the rut, if does want to get bred, they check the scrapes, they know which buck goes with interdigital, preorbital, and forehead, and they can pick those out. And they know that more mature bucks create and produce more forehead gland lore. They can piece all those together, and they can figure out which bucks are the dominant bucks. They can then wait at the scrape, which I've seen happen all the time, for those bucks to come in and breed them. It's so important to allow does to hit your mock scrape, because they are picking up which bucks are there, which bucks are hitting it, and who they might want to be, breeding them when it comes that time. So this is why it's so important. You have to have a place for them to deposit forehead, a place for them to deposit preorbital and salivary, and a place for them to deposit their interdigital. When we get into that rut and bucks are rub urinating into the scrapes, that's a whole other different story, and a whole other different scent. Every buck has a unique scent where their interdigital, their preorbital, and their forehead lets every other deer in that area know who they are. So if you're using good gland lore and natural gland lore, you can create a whole new buck for these does to come in and check out. All right, so when you're going to do the final touches of your mock scrape, again, and I'm not going to doctor this one up at all because, again, it's just right behind my house, but always wear rubber gloves so you're not leaving extra scent on the things you want to touch. But you would have your preorbital, we use Smokey's preorbital, you want to put it on your licking branch. Smokey's buck interdigital goes in the scrape. How many drops? 4 or 5 drops. Use your fingers, make a fake print, 4 or 5 drops in each print. And last but not least, okay, you want a good forehead gland lore. And you want to put forehead gland lore on these leaves up here, okay, face here, which would deposit the preorbital, head here, which would hit the forehead, and again, interdigital. Now your does can pick out and tell which buck is there. Since you're creating this and making this a fictitious buck, you need to have all 3 to really sell it to these does. This is Brian Keitlinger for, Gland Magic, Power of Gland Lore, teaching you about how to use the glands and why it's so important.